I am again thankful to all news media outlets for letting me use their contents. I greatly appreciate that. I am available 24/7 if they need any assistance. Now go to the headlines. Hi and very warm welcome at Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Following news headlines have been reported by world major English news channels and news agencies. So please watch it.
Tonight, the world says farewell to Pope Francis in a historic funeral service. Cardinals and dignitaries from around the world pay tribute in St. Peter's Square as hundreds of thousands line the streets of Rome to say goodbye to the people's pope. The focus now shifts to the selection of his successor. A high-stakes meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky at the Vatican, the latest on their face-to-face conversation and the push to end the war in Ukraine. Protests in Wisconsin after a local judge is arrested by the FBI. Plus new information about a 2-year-old girl, a U.S. citizen, who a judge says was deported by ICE. Breaking news out of Iran. A massive, deadly explosion devastates a key shipping port. Questions tonight about what caused it amid nuclear talks with the United States. Homes destroyed in Texas. Hail pummels parts of Oklahoma, and heavy rain is triggering flooding. Severe weather threat we're tracking tonight. Fighting back against explicit deepfakes.
It looked completely real.
One teen's nightmare that inspired the push for a law to ban them. And there is good news tonight about the heart-to-heart connection between this woman and young girl.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
On this Saturday night, a final farewell to the people's pope. World leaders, dignitaries, and hundreds of thousands from around the world gather in Rome.
You weren't a friend because I got to know him.
To pay their last respects to Pope Francis, honoring a man whose impact transcended religion. An unscheduled and unlikely summit. Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky meet at the Vatican to discuss peace. And a tightening race to the finish line. But is it too late to make up lost ground?
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Pallbearers carried the modest wooden coffin of Pope Francis into St. Peter's Square today. An estimated 250,000 people attended his open-air funeral. The ceremony drew it.
Tonight on PBS News Weekend, world leaders and throngs of mourners bid a solemn farewell to Pope Francis as President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky meet at the Vatican to discuss hopes for lasting peace. Then how NIH staffing shortages and layoffs threaten to delay the rollout of a potential breakthrough in the fight against cancer. And we explore the worldwide crisis affecting coral reefs that scientists blame on global warming.
It's very alarming. So I think people really need to recognize what they're doing, by the inaction. It's the kiss of death for coral reefs.
Tonight, farewell to Francis. Catholic faithful and world leaders gather in front of St. Peter's Basilica for the Pope's funeral mass. Thousands more fill the streets.
I'm John Dickerson in Rome. The Pope who worked to bring his church into the streets fills them with the faithful who bid him farewell.
Loud applause for President Zelensky of Ukraine. Wow.
This face-to-face happening against the backdrop of geopolitical turmoil and war. Now, the shift to the future. What's next for the Roman Catholic Church?
I'm Chris Lipsey in Rome, where these crowds for Pope Francis' funeral may say something about who his successor will be.
Deadly explosion. A massive blast hits an Iranian port. Plus, storms thundering across the plains. Andrew Kozak with the forecast and the intensifying threat ahead. And later, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This year, no president, but one tradition lives on. The hotel that has played host to history for decades. Major Garrett takes us inside. Obama.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any more Italian in here, this week's last call bar is named Forget About It. In Wildomar, California, the staff tells us it's run by a man named Angelo, who came here in 2007 with no money and didn't speak English. Unfortunately, Trump just sent him back. I kid. That is the staff with none other than Eric Trump. So congrats to everybody at Forget About It. There it is. About it. This week's last call honoree is a man who offered booze to the cops after a high-speed chase. Here's a pic of the man who did it, and there's our guy. Just kidding. From before. That's the one you wanted. Just kidding. This was from Jersey. You from Jersey? This is actually in Florida, where a guy drove past the cops, offering them a beer before they tracked him down. Watch the video quick.
Stop. Stop. Drinking some, like a beer or something.
Drinking a beer. Aaron, have you ever bribed anyone to get out of trouble?
No, I actually just entertained all the police officers in Florham Park, New Jersey tonight before I got
Oh,
here.
you did a set.
Yeah, I did a beefsteak, which is great, but I would never offer cops booze. I think it's better to offer cops weed. And then you watch them get stoned and see how much they start to talk about Bernie Sanders, you know? I believe the 1% of the 2% is none of this makes sense.
Trey, let me ask you this. What would Adriana do?
She would say, "What you doing, fellas? How you doing?
A little flirt?
Just stay away from Christopher, please."
We're still going on.
Leave the steps.
I love that. Joe? Are you, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this guy redefined one for my baby, one more for the road. This guy. I'm thinking you should do Dean Martin. You know, hey, Pally, how are you, Pally? Good to see you, Pally. Just got to go like that and let it go.
Yeah.
But this guy, the nerve of that guy. By the way, got arrested, did he not?
Yeah.
And they tased this guy afterwards.
Yeah.
But he didn't feel a thing. So
Yeah, I think when he heard... Hi, everyone, and thanks a lot for joining us. I'm DeMarco Morgan, and welcome to ABC News Live Weekend. Let's take a look at your top headlines right now. More than 1 million Catholics around the world are mourning the loss of Pope Francis. Thousands gathering in the Vatican to pay their respects, and now the world's attention is shifting to the cardinals and the secret ritual of choosing the next pope, the conclave. More than 100 cardinals will convene inside the Sistine Chapel and vote to choose Pope Francis' successor. The candidate must win 2/3 majority, which could take multiple votes. The conclave is expected to start sometime between May 6th and May 11th. We'll have more details about the conclave next. And student loan forgiveness is coming to an end. The Department of Education announced it will resume collection of more than 5 million defaulted loans, and it's starting in less than 2 weeks. Impacted borrowers could see their wages garnished. The Trump administration says the taxpayers should be the ones to pay for these loans. And Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said he wants to phase out artificial food dyes, asking all major food manufacturers to remove petroleum-based food colorings from their products. These dyes color many food products at our grocery stores, and they are found in popular candy too, including Cheetos, M&Ms, and Skittles. The dyes are FDA approved and safe for consumption. The secretary has long raised concerns about them and said he wants them removed by the end of 2026. And turning now to our top story, everybody's talking about it all over the world. In the coming days, a large gathering of cardinals will happen at the Vatican to follow a time-honored process to choose Pope Francis as successor.
Welcome back to the program. You're watching Daybreak. Some breaking news for you now. A driver in Vancouver has ploughed into a street festival. Several people have been killed and others wounded, according to police. In other news, hundreds of people are caught in a massive blast at a shipping port in Iran, the fire still raging. And Mohammed Abbas, Palestinian president for 2 decades, has named a potential successor, appointing close ally Hussein al-Sheikh as vice president. Breaking news from Canada then. Multiple people have been killed and wounded after an SUV hit a crowd at a street festival in Vancouver. Police said the driver has been taken into custody. One witness told local radio that the driver attempted to flee on foot before being restrained by bystanders. The incident happened shortly after 8 p.m. on East 41st Avenue and Fraser Street during a block party for Lapu Lapu Day. That's a Filipino cultural event celebrating a leader who resisted Spanish conquest of his land. Vancouver's Mayor Ken Sim has expressed shock and sadness.
This is Asia Now.
Hello, it's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi, and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Angela Abisara. World leaders, royalty, cardinals, and more than 400,000 faithful bid farewell to Pope Francis. Crowds lined the streets as the pontiff's coffin was brought to final resting place in Rome. The death of Pope Francis mourned across Southeast Asia. Mass services and ceremonies have been held to honor the late pontiff. And a strong appeal from Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong to all political parties: reject any influence that targets race and religion as election issues. Pope Francis has been laid to rest after a historic funeral that brought together world leaders and hundreds of thousands of Catholics from across the globe. The first Latin American leader of the Catholic Church was buried upon his request outside Vatican City at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. The Vatican says more than 400,000 mourners gathered at St. Peter's Square and lined the streets of Rome to pay their respects.
Z and ABC iView.
Today, 6 days to go. Campaign rallies ramp up as the Prime Minister pledges a revamped health advice service. A massive explosion at a port in southern Iran kills at least 18 people and injures hundreds more. Pope Francis laid to rest in Rome's Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica after a funeral attended by nearly 500,000 people in the Vatican. While on the sidelines, the US and Ukrainian leaders sit down for the first time since their tense talks in February. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Melissa McKay. Political leaders are rallying around the country, trying to build momentum with just 6 days to go until Australians head to the polls. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has unveiled a multi-million-dollar election pitch to rebrand and expand a free round-the-clock health advice service. National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman is travelling with the PM.
Hello, very good morning. It's 7 o'clock. Coming up on the show today, a change in tone from President Trump, whose criticism shifts from Kyiv to the Kremlin. Plus, Chris Eubank Jr. is taken to hospital, but only after defeating Conor Benn in a thrilling 12-round battle. It's Sunday, the 27th of April. After a face-to-face meeting with President Zelensky at the Pope's funeral, Donald Trump turns his criticism on Vladimir Putin. In Vancouver, in Canada, several people are killed after a car is driven into a crowd of people at a street festival. And at home in Leeds, a counter-terrorism investigation is underway after 2 women are injured during an attack. Plus, Chris Eubank Jr. delivers a grandstand finish, settling the latest episode in a generational rivalry.
The winner by unanimous decision, Chris Eubank.
And it could be a historic day at Anfield as Liverpool need just a point against Tottenham Hotspur to be crowned Premier League champions. Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here on The Breakfast Show. Our top story, Donald Trump has said he suspects...
Good morning. Breaking news out of Vancouver this morning, and there are a number of people dead after a car rams into crowds.
It was a street festival celebrating Filipino culture and ended in tragedy.
Police trying to make sense of this shocking attack. Well, some horrific images coming out of Vancouver now that show multiple people lying in the street, either badly injured or fatally injured, as police try to piece together the events that took place just a couple of hours ago.
And here in Leeds, counter-terrorism police are investigating an incident after two women were left seriously injured in an attack involving a crossbow and a firearm.
President Trump turns against Vladimir Putin after a historic meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky in St. Peter's Basilica.
And that's as Catholics around the world bid their final farewell to Pope Francis in a service which was attended by over 400,000 people.
Liverpool launches a £2 a night tourist tax. Should all our cities follow suit?
On your marks, get set, go. 56,000 people are counting down the hours now to the 45th London Marathon.
Liverpool need just a single point to win the Premier League. Tottenham stand in their way at Anfield later today. It should mean a record-equalling 20th league title for the Reds, and just a second in 35 years will wrap up a huge weekend of football. Based this out.
It's the London and Manchester marathons today, but will the weather hold out for those running? Join me a little bit later to find out.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Africa News. The news.
Pope Francis has been laid to rest at the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome, in a simple underground tomb with just his papal name, Franciscus. His funeral on Saturday attracted as many as 250,000 people, rich and poor alike, who came to pay their respects. Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, who eulogized Pope Francis, memorialized him as a pope among the people, with an open heart towards everyone. After the funeral mass on St. Peter's Square, the Pope's coffin was moved to the Basilica of St. Mary Major for...
Catholics in the West African nation of Ghana observed a requiem mass in honor of Pope Francis on Friday evening at Accra's Holy Spirit Cathedral. Catholics make up to about 10% of the population in Ghana, a majority Christian nation. Pope Francis was beloved by many across Africa as he frequently prayed public for peace in ongoing conflicts on the continent. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Friday oversaw the signing by Congo and Rwanda of a pledge to work towards a peace deal that will ease U.S. access to critical mineral in resource-rich Eastern Congo, bringing U.S. influence to bear in a mineral trade that has helped fuel conflict that has killed millions for 3 decades. Rubio's participation in the Washington ceremony with his Central African counterparts is an early step in what the Trump administration says is a rebuilding of U.S. foreign policy to focus on transactions of direct financial or strategic benefit. Congo and Rwanda hope that the involvement of the United States will cut the fighting and militia violence that have defined peacekeeping and negotiations since the mid-1990s. Congo was once the largest producer of cobalt, a mineral used to make lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles and smartphones. It also has a substantial gold, diamond, and copper reserves. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has sought out a deal with the Trump administration that will offer the U.S. better access to its country's resources in exchange for U.S. help calming hostilities.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shekel 5858. I am Amir Shekel. Have a good life. Bye-bye.